Hey guys, Mark from Periphery here, and in this column I'm going to do a little bit of a continuation based off of one of the other entries from earlier this year when I talked about big chord voicings and 5 and 6 voice chords that I played on a 6 string. And one of the songs in our catalog that really makes use of that kind of thing is Mile Zero. And the intro riff / verse riff is what I had in mind for breaking down for you guys. So I'll show you a little bit about that riff. So for that riff, I knew I wanted 2 chords. The riff was kind of an experiment to see if I could write something sort of jagged and angular rhythmically, but not sort of unsettling, over 2 chords. And the chords itself are actually not complicated. They're based around just a regular C chord and A minor. So that's... The experiment here was to make the part interesting by way of the voicings and the harmonic content of the chords. So you play those 2 chords back to back, and you can kind of write a folk song or something that's not metal or not heavy at all. They do actually sound like folk chords, but if you dress them up, as I like to say, and make them sort of more complex harmonically, then you get a completely different result. So instead of that normal C chord I played for you guys earlier, I substituted this. That's 4, 6, and 3 are your 3 fretted notes. That's one of my favorite chords of all time. I forget where I learned it. I think it was just kind of fiddling around with the fretboard and seeing, again, examining intervals that I liked and building it all together and sort of fleshing it all together as one chord. But yeah, I love that chord. I use it a lot. And then the second chord is based on the 9th fret. So instead of playing it on the 5th string position here, 2nd fret, I go up to the 6th string, 9th fret position. And this is a weird chord, and I fret it with my thumb. I know that's not commonplace for a lot of players these days for a couple reasons. One of which, you see what I'm doing here when I leave my thumb over the top of the neck, is my hand becomes very slanted, which is not the kind of posture you want when you're playing sort of textbook leads, or you want to be playing leads that give you the best fret access possible. So that's the one drawback. The plus to it is that it allows you to fret low voicings or the root of a chord with your thumb. And that's honestly where I get a lot of my inspiration from when it comes to building my own chords like this. And I'll play the chord for you. It's kind of a tough one if you've never used your thumb before. I'll get to the alternative in a second. So that goes like this. That's, once again. And yeah, there's a lot of really cool, close together voicings in that chord. I love the droniness of the open notes that are happening, which is why it's not the same as playing this. I taught you guys that a couple months ago in a column, and that chord is great, but if you can make use of more open strings, it gives a sort of drony quality that I like to hear sometimes in a lot of these chords. And then once you're up on this chord, the sequence rhythmically goes. it's an octave slide from 4 to 7. And it goes right back to the first section of the riff. It's kind of repeating more or less the whole way. But after the second repetition, it goes. And you'll notice I'm fretting the 4th fret here. And as soon as I fret it, I'm sliding up with my thumb, which it looks weird, it looks goofy. I laugh when I see videos of myself doing it. But I realize that using my thumb when I play gives me much more of an accurate sense of where I am on the neck. So I'm not constantly looking down where I am. These give me a decent sense, but when I'm using my thumb, that's when I can just sort of be thinking about other things and just sort of feeling where I am. So that's the reason for the slide in this situation. So it goes from the 4th fret. And there's a fill that breaks up the 2nd and 3rd repetitions. And that goes like this. That's a hammer-on from the 7th to the 9th fret. And then this 7th fret on the 4th string, picked really quickly afterwards, is the open note on the 4th string. And the last note is this 9th fret. And gives some generous vibrato too. That's sort of like a Randy Rhoads inspired Van Halen thing where they would just throw in these short signs of flashiness and go right back to the rhythm at hand. And you'll notice the rhythm I've been playing matches the drums note for note. So that was kind of the idea there, to get this really heavy backbeat and lock in with the drums, but sort of dress it up with interesting chord voicings. The 3rd repetition is identical to the first two. So it's funny, when I showed the guys this riff at practice, I played it for them and they said it sounded cool, but they heard it a completely different way. They heard it in their heads as being an 8th note forward. And to me, that sounded completely unnatural. And if you go listen to the pulse of the way the rhythm kicks in at the beginning of the song, you'll hear it's an 8th note behind what they had envisioned. And when the riff comes back later in the song, you'll actually hear the riff displace an 8th note forward. And that's not what I had in mind. It was the idea of the other guys to sort of put it in the way that they heard it in the song. So that's a cool little fact there. It's actually a really fun songwriting mechanic I learned to apply after that, to sort of take a riff that you've written and you've played it the way you wanted to play it, but try shifting it in your actual DAW. Try shifting it an 8th note back or forward or a quarter note or a 16th note, something to sort of get the creative juices flowing again. And it's a really interesting technique that I've started to use.